Dr. Theo Acheampong, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Samson.
Great. I don't know whether you get fatigue over this issue. I remember 2019, I hosted you guys, Imani, Kofi Bento, Kofi Bento, Bright Simmons, yourself, and you had raised the critical issue of the potential of Ghana losing some 30 billion US dollars. And you had said, quote, Aker Energy is walking all over this government at that time. Then in 2021, the issue pops up again about the need for GNPC to, as in government of Ghana, to commit as much as 1.6 billion in this process. And we were told of the promise of raking tax and royalties, approximately 7.51 billion in nominal terms, that there was going to be substantial foreign exchange inflows, estimated around 27 billion in nominal terms, and all sort of sweet things. Then we woke up to news of, Aker not actually being able to live up to the promise. And then now this. And you guys now have come together in a strong 29 civil society organizations. Please explain to the man on the streets, what is this that you are fighting for?
Oh, it's very easy. We are fighting for Ghana and Ghana's interests, and that has always been the primary driver in all of this. It's interesting you quote some of the things that's happened in the past, because look, we have analyzed these issues ad nauseum, gone the nitty-gritty, done the due diligence, the back and forth. And back then, we highlighted serious issues about the Aker deal or the transaction, to the point that we even had to amend the country's petroleum laws just to suit or favor this one particular investor, off the back of various promises that were made about this particular investment. Then fast forward, you're right, 2021 thereabout, there's a proposed sale. Again, we do the analysis, and it is the conclusion is very clear that we should not be paying the 1.6 billion for those two assets because they were grossly overvalued. A number of us were hounded and even appeared on the front page of some newspapers, national newspapers, saying that we were quote unquote anti-Ghana.
That's right. I remember that.
Right? Yep. Fast forward, only a year and a half or so down the line, this same asset that was going to be bought for 1 point something billion of Ghana's own money, and actually we gave it to them, remember, an honorable Amaboy is very right. We gave it to them for free on a silver platter. This same asset now is being sold to another entity for $1 and some other sort of consideration. So you begin to actually wonder who is actually anti-Ghana in all of this. Is it civil society or the people whom we've actually given our mandate to negotiate for and on behalf of the good people of Ghana? So currently there are two issues on the table. Mm-hmm. The first issue relates or deals with the Jubilee Oil Holdings, which is a subsidiary of GNPC that bought the 7% combined interest in the 10 and then the Jubilee field. So Anadarko was one of the partners in the deal. Anadarko says that they are leaving Ghana. And then in the back and forth of that process, Ghana says that, okay, don't worry, we're going to buy those shares, right? Or some of those shares, and then transfer it to the National Oil Company or its subsidiary in that process. Now, something happens. When you read the petroleum laws of this country, and here I'll be very specific with you, Act 919, the Petroleum and Exploration Act, Section 18.1, which addresses or deals with issues of preemption. And let me quote for the purposes of educating our listeners. It says that where a contractor enters into an agreement to dispose of all or part of the interest of that contractor directly or indirectly under a petroleum agreement, the corporation, so this is GNPC, shall have a right or a preemption right to acquire that said interest on the same terms as agreed with the potential buyer. It is very clear. It is unambiguous. So I'm a bit at a loss now how suddenly the board chair of GNPC says that PetroSA, which is one of the partners in this deal, now enters into the equation, and there's meant to be a proposed 50% sale of the 7% that has been transferred to Jubilee Offshore Holdings, which was rightly acquired by the state using this preemption rights. And it is very important to state that the preemption rights of the state or Ghana as a whole supersedes any other rights of any other party in the petroleum agreement. It is very clear. And we've got precedent to this. You can go back to the when Cosmos Energy also wanted to sell out of its asset back in 2010. There was the whole back and forth around that. And Ghana at that point elected again to execute those preemption rights to say, look, if you want to sell to, it was then ExxonMobil at the time, we even opened the data room for them without all of the due process. But we used that right of the state to stop that deal and to force Cosmos to now stay and become a partner in all of this. So the process is very clear. There is no way that a right and a shares that have been acquired using national money or public resources through a company that has been set up as a subsidiary of the GNPC. And this right belongs to the people or the good people of Ghana. There is no way that a third party who is a commercial party in this transaction, in this case, PetroSA, can come in and say, let's take a portion of those rights. If that were the case, then we might as well just have Tallow Oil and all the other partners in the deal also saying that we also have a portion of those rights that should be accruing to us. So I think the board chair is very wrong on this, and we have to be very emphatic about that. And I support the call of civil society in relation to this, because we have studied this transaction or proposed transaction. We've looked at the past behavior of officials at the National Oil Company and others in relation to how we've been giving away these deals and concessions. And in this particular instance, it is very clear to us that the board chair was wrong. In fact, the minister was right by having written those letters and telling the board chair to stop what he is doing, because it is at variance and contrary to the laws of Ghana, and particularly the Petroleum Agreement and the Petroleum Act, which is where every other thing, derives from. Honorable Freddie Blay makes references to things like the Companies Act and things in terms of supporting the arguments that he was making in the press release that I have seen. But nowhere in that Company Act can can that take precedence over the core legislation which governs the sector, which is the Act 919, the Petroleum Act, and specifically sections 18, 1 to 4, which deals or addresses the issues of preemption. So that's the first issue. And then quickly on the second issue, which has to do with the Aker Energy transaction and the purported buying of an FPSO for under the proposed plan of development for over $1.7 billion. And again, as civil society, we've done the homework, we've done some analysis, and it is very clear that if we want to go that route, then we're actually better off commissioning a new FPSO to be built. It takes about 2 to 3 years. The plan of development, as has been submitted, and the related matters within that clearly shows that if we elect to buy this old FPSO, so the FPSO is basically a tanker that when they produce the crude, they process it within that with the machines that are in there, and then they store the crude, and the crude is taken to the market. The current proposal is actually to use a very, very old FPSO. In fact, it's over 15 or so years old. There will be some modifications and you name to it. But the price tag of that FPSO, for us, we think it leaves a lot of questions to be. In fact, on the books of Aker Energy, the value that they attached to that FPSO was about $50 million. So how that suddenly metamorphoses and becomes 1.7 billion under the proposed, plan of development, leaves a lot to be desired. We think if you even did some modifications to this old FPSO and things like that, it shouldn't cost more than $500 million to actually do that, and then some additional OPEX. So there are serious issues that we have raised, and many a time when we have raised these issues, we've actually found ourselves being right, and unfortunately, some of the government agencies, who we assume would be acting in the interest of the nation,
Let,
not, doing.
let's see what happens this time, because this time it doesn't appear to me that it's actually you, the CSOs, that are raising the issue. Now it's an internal fight that you are giving, as it were, you are elevating for the people to understand. Because all the time you have raised the issues on the occasions that it has come up, you have been said to be wrong. And as we go on, time appears to vindicate you, the CSOs.